humble and honored to have Suzana here with us. We're going to talk a little bit about Suzana, but before we start, I'd like just to start with a prayer. So I invite all of us to, if you want, to close our eyes. If not, that's only fine too. Let's just reach for that connection with our spirit guides. Let's reach for that connection with the guides of this house here, our mentors, for spirit guides that help us to be on this journey of self-improvement. And let's ask for the spirit guides to guide Suzana today, to guide her thoughts, to guide her words. And let's hope that we also can be with our minds open, but especially with our hearts open. The message today is just so important that we should not just try to just think about the message, but we should really live the message and have this message with us in the day to day. So let us start this day with this prayer and open your hearts and open your minds and ask for the good spirits to be here with us this very special day. So be it. So be it. So I'm gonna just read a quick thing here about Suzana. And again, Suzana, it's such a pleasure to have you here today. So Suzana is Brazilian and has lived in Miami for more than 30 years. She was born into a Spiritist family. She dedicates her time to her work as a physical therapist and a director of rehabilitation, her family, and the dissemination of Spiritism, both in Portuguese and in English. Suzana is one of the founders of the Conscious Living Spiritist group. So, Suzana, thank you so much again, and with you.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me. Can you guys sitting over there hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, perfect. All right, so it's really a pleasure for me. I'm very, very happy to be able to connect with you all. Although I do a lot of lectures in Portuguese, English is what I consider to be my mission. And so I tend to favor invitations to speak in English because I appreciate the effort. Here at Conscious Living, we will be celebrating 20 years of continuous meetings in English, which in our center we do on a weekly basis every Sunday around this time, 11 a.m. And we also have three study groups in English, although we also have a lot of work done in Portuguese. But it has been my commitment since I moved to America in 1994 to study in Spiritism in English and disseminate in English. So I'm very happy to join you guys this morning. I wish I was there having coffee and whatever it is that you're eating with you. But who knows, one day we'll make that happen and then I can visit the group in person. Um, so today we're going to talk about thought and will. But I when I put this talk together, I really wanted to focus on our potentialities. A lot of times, my talks included, or many of the spiritual talks that we hear, they do focus on our limitations, on our darkness, on our need to evolve, to grow, to get to know ourselves from this perspective, of the perspective of like facing our areas of vulnerability and the voids and the limitations, the darkness, and so forth. Today, I want to talk a little bit from a different angle because we have incredible treasures within ourselves. We have potentialities within ourselves, and we can use our thought and our will to uncover and to tap into this incredible strength that lies within ourselves. I want to open with an image and then some references from Christ that speak about these potentialities. I live in a house here in Miami. I have a yard, and there's an area along the fence that I have cover with a protective sheet, and then rocks on top, and then glue, so the little tiny little rocks would not be like moving. And yet, every weekend, although there are 3 layers of protection from the soil, so that along the brown fence you have like a little pathway of white rocks. Every weekend I go over there to pull the weeds, and from time to time I look at the weeds and I ask myself, which strength is this that these weeds have to pop across from 3 layers of barriers, and still they find their way through the surface? And every weekend I have to go there and pull the weeds. And the answer is, it is the strength of life. It is the strength of God. And with that connection, I tell myself, and I like to share this idea, that we too are nature, and the same force that drives the weed to come from the inner parts of the soil through 3 layers of barriers and find its way towards the light. It is the same force, it is the same strength, it is the same God that lies within each one of us. So that's the opening idea that I want to share with you. And thought and will are instruments that we can use to tap into this reality that was shared with us by Jesus when he said, "You are God yourselves." When he said that we could do everything that he was doing and much more. And when he said that we were the salt of the earth, the light of the world, highlighting to us our potentialities, potentialities that often we neglect, that often we forget, that in our day to day, we don't necessarily connect with these principles, and the voice of Jesus reminding us of our grandiosity, of the much that we can do, of our true power, the power that lies within each one of us. So, to also help us in our reflection today, it is important, since we're going to be talking about thought and will, to remember that Andrew Lewis, in his work, spoke to us about our mental house. And he kind of structure our mental house in 3 levels. We have the top level, the superior level, which is the level that connects with our future, and also to our higher ideals, with our goals. It's the level that connect us with our spirituality. We have the middle level, which is the level of the present moment. Is the mental activity related to the things that we are doing today, the choices that we are making day by day, moment by moment. And then we have the basement. And in the basement is where then we have the past, but also we have the past in terms of our achievements. So it's the archive of our achievements, as well as the bank of memories and of our mishaps, our mistakes. Everything is collected and engraved in ourselves, but it is also where all our potentialities reside. And they are there in a dormant state, just waiting for our actions, our willingness, and ways to access it and to develop it so that the God that lies within us comes to manifest in our day to day. So, for this to happen, God has given us two very powerful instruments. One is thought, and the other one is will. So a lot of the concepts that I will be sharing with you today come from the works of Leon Denis. And so Denis talks to us about thought being a creative energy, an agent of transformation, and a lever of evolution. So let's talk a little bit about how thought functions. And if I would ask any one of you who has been in spiritism, who has done a little bit of studies, if someone stops you, and is interested in spiritism and asks you, how exactly is that thought works? You guys talk a lot about the importance of thoughts and how thoughts shape our reality. Can you explain to me how is that? Um, so I wonder if anyone would know what to say, how to go about this. So I want to give you an analogy that I think is super easy and even a child will be able to understand. So when we think, our thoughts are um, in Genesis, that's going to say that the thought is for the spirit, the same thing the hand is for us. So here we use our hands to do things, the spirit use thoughts to do things. So when we think, we project this thought, which is an energy, that's the best we can say at the moment, into the universe. The universe is not empty. We have the universal cosmic fluid. We are all immersed into this very, very, very subtle energy, and our thoughts will impact this energy. So when I think, I project this energy out of the universe, and once it's out there, it will meet energies, they're similar by affinity. It will associate with those energies and it will return for me. So if I send out a negative thought, and let's say the negativity is 7 out of 10, after going out and being associated, when it returns to me, it returns 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. So let's look at the analogy. Think of Facebook for the ones who use Facebook still, right? When you do a posting on Facebook, what you're doing, you are downloading in the Facebook universe your thought. So it materializes in that arena. Now, you have people who are looking at your posting and people who will agree with that posting. You're going to get a lot of likes. So you thought, you projected, which is your posting. Now you are associating. A lot of people are going to put likes and are going to put comments saying, yes, this is it, and yada, yada. And then a few hours later, you're going to go back to your same posting to check how many likes you have and the comments. And so now the idea that you originally had projected came back to you stronger because you have many other minds who are corroborating with your initial thought. I think if you understand this, you can explain thought to anyone out there because this is exactly how it happens. So, therefore, we should be thinking about what is it that we are thinking, what is it that we are projecting in the universe at each moment, because no matter what, our thoughts have quality, which is the quality of our emotions. So the thought in itself is neutral, but it's always associated to our emotions, to our feelings. that will give it its quality. And thoughts have density. They can be heavy, they can be light, they can be dark, they can be bright. So, whatever we are projecting out there, it is returning to us. But before, another important concept related to thought is that before it projects outside, it projects inwards. So that's really the most a very tricky thing for us to understand. And it's also very easy to understand. So let's say you are walking outside, it's night, it's late, and now you see someone who you are a little suspicious of that individual. If you're alone, immediately you might feel your heart racing. What is the heart racing if not a response to a thought? A thought that you had, a cognitive analysis of a situation that you interpret and decided there was a dangerous situation. So, to that thought, there was a feeling, there was an emotion, there was fear. So, the thought with the emotion generated a physical response, a clear, objective physical response, one that you could easily identify. The thing is that every single thought of us generates a physical response. Not always we are able to identify because the response to fear is a very strong response and you can easily see that your heart is beating fast. However, every single thought will um, will generate a response that is either healthy or unhealthy. And every single cell of our body is actually bathed by that particular energy. So when we think about our thoughts, if we say, to someone, you should be thinking, what's your thought? Do your mental hygiene. um, don't be like wishing bad on anyone, because it's better for you not to live this way. Well, it's better for you because when you do that, the first person that you're hurting is yourself. And so to choose to watch our thoughts and to do our mental hygiene is an act of self-love. So forget about the other. I mean, yes, we have to love our neighbors. Yes, we have to do good for our neighbors, but the commandment says that we have to love others as we love ourselves. So we need to be the first aim of our own goodness. So if you cannot do something good for the other, if you feel incapable, you can always think of putting yourself in first place. So it's one moment where, let's say, self-interest can be beneficial because you are taking care of yourself by watching the nature and the quality of your thoughts. So we talk about the physiology of thought. We talk about thought acting on ourselves. And the third aspect that I want to bring is that Emmanuel, in the book Life and Sex, in the introduction of this book, he talks about how with our thoughts we build our mental dwelling. So we have a mental house, a dwelling, just like we have a home that you all gonna go back to at the end of this lecture. And this mental dwelling is made of the mist or the uh, sun rays of our past experiences. So when we incarnate, we already incarnate with a psychic domain, with a mental dwelling. That is where we are. And each day we are adding either darkness or light to this mental space. So we take good care of our homes. Most of us do anyway. We like to have it clean. We like to put a nice vase, put a flower, make it pretty, especially when we're receiving someone. But in general, we take care of our homes. So the idea is that we have our homes right here in our minds, and that we should be also taking care. The same way we clean our home, we declutter our home from time to time. It's important that we take time in our lives to look at our mental dwelling. What is it that, where am I living? Where am I living? What is the quality of my living, right? So this is something that we should be looking at and analyzing. So with that in mind, we can now go to Will. And Will, Leon Denis is going to talk about will as a motor, as a lever. So will is the force, is the motor behind the thought that's going to propel that thought uh, a certain distance, right? And with a certain strength. It has different functions, and Denis is going to talk about working as a magnet. So the will for living, for example, someone that wishes to live and to live fully and have a strong will when it comes to living attracts to that individual resources, their vital resources of vitality uh, in each and every moment. But then he also talks about will being the principle of evolution. So it is that strength that propel us forward, that set our internal potentials in motion. So he's going to talk about if we have a thought, if we have a desire to evolve, to fulfill God's laws, for example, to act according to Jesus' teachings, if that is a thought that is permanently in our mind, and we have a strong will to move into this direction, then the combination of our thoughts and our will be a strong force helping us with the process of evolution, because it helps us to stay in track. I like the idea of, I do yoga once a week. Um, and I love the practice of yoga, especially when the instructor says, let's set up your intent for your practice today. So it's really cool because you say, okay, my intent, I often say, my intent is to surrender, because I'm someone that I'm very cognitive. I'm always working with my brain, with my mind. I'm always thinking, thinking, thinking. And I love the idea of surrendering in the sense of like, let me just trust. Let me just give control. Let me just yield. And so when you do yoga, by the end of the practice, depending on the practice, you in that state of complete exhaustion where you lie down for your meditation and all your defenses are gone. And also your mind has set that particular intent. So for us, so it's a very powerful experience. So for us, um, thought and will have this function. Evolution is not linear, it will never be. It has ups and downs, and that's completely fine. Some days you're going to be more connected to your intent, some days less connected to your intent. But as long as that intent remains, that will give you the strength to get up as many times as necessary. That will give you the force, the resilience to start again as many times as necessary. So that's really something powerful and something that Spiritism gives us, because what Spiritism gives us is purpose. People who have purpose has resilience. As long as you have a purpose, as long as you have an intent, then you might have moments of weakness. You might have moments where you want to give up and kick the bucket if you would translate from Portuguese to English, right? But the idea is that you always find your way back to yourself and to your purpose, because the intent is there, and again, the will is there. So there's the force that keeps you going, that sustains you through life. So it's really important. And also he talks about Denis talks about will acting on our fluidic body and activating vibrations that will adapt our spiritual body to more elevated moods of sensation and to a higher degree of life. So let me translate this a little bit. So we have the reference from Jesus when he talks about the wedding garment. If you go into a wedding, you need to be properly dressed. Now, wedding is always a representation of our communion with a higher being, with God, with Jesus Himself. So, a wedding represents that strong communion, that strong integration, that intimacy with higher purposes. So, in order to enter this state of higher communion, we need to be vibratory prepared. So, our perispirit, which is also fluidic, is extremely sensitive to our thoughts. The same way that when I think, I create in the universal cosmic fluid. The perispirit is a byproduct of the universal cosmic fluid. So our thoughts, they resonate in our spiritual body. So the more we keep our thoughts elevated, the more we are able to um, vibrate at a higher level of frequency, the more our spiritual body responds to the command and to the quality of those thoughts. So many of us would love to go to some really nice spiritual city or colony when we discarnate. And some of us are extremely, extremely fearful of being stuck at the lower zones. So we can think about those things as very matter of fact. First of all, the lower zones are not for real. And what I mean by that is they will not be there forever. They are a construction, a temporary construction of the state of mind of humanity. So when you know something and you choose not to do that, and you find yourself later in a state of guilt, this is the prevalent state of the minds who are stuck on the lower zone, guilt. Guilt is a very uh, grounding in the sense of keeps us low on the ground, emotional experience. Now, that state of guilt, of shame, of conflict that often we feel within ourselves is the same state that we find in the lower zone. The lower zones are nothing more, nothing else than a projection of our inner consciousness, the state of our inner consciousness. So if I ask you now at this moment in your life, not at this moment that you're listening to me, where exactly do you think you live mentally? Are you someone who you feel like you condemn yourself each and every day because you are consciously choosing to do wrong things? Probably not. Do you still do wrong things? Probably yes. Do you still experience guilt? Probably so. But your intent in this moment for most of us is to grow. We are committed to the goodness. We are committed to do the work. And as we commit to do the work, we also need to commit to compassion, compassion towards ourselves, to self love. So there's nothing wrong with guilt. Guilt is actually necessary. Guilt tells us that we maybe didn't do our best. The problem is not guilt. The problem is to be stuck on guilt. Guilt should be only a step, should be only a moment to something that is healing, which is your next step. Your next step is to say, okay, I erred, and to err is human. So what is it that I need to learn and what is it that I need to do to fix this situation. That is pretty much what life expects from us. Not that we are perfect and not that we don't err, but that we live consciously, that we recognize that our actions didn't add to our life, it subtract from our lives. I love to think of life this way. Instead of saying this was good or this was bad, which brings a very judgmental tone to our analysis, we can always think this choice that I make to act this way, did it add? Do I feel richer? Do I feel more in peace? Do I feel more abundance? Do I feel more harmony? Or did it withdraw from my energy? Am I feeling tired? Am I feeling blah? Right? And so if depending on how you're feeling, you can say, I don't think that this was the best. So what is it that I need to do differently? So anyways, this state of living is basically what, if we are in this mindset when we discarnate, this is going to be also our mindset. And it's going to put us where we need to be, right? In addition, which probably is not going to be on the lower zone. So I do not fear the lower zones at all, because I feel like, although far from being perfect, and really, really far from being perfect. I feel like I have set an intent to my life. I'm very committed to this intent, and I do my work every day, and I feel peace. I feel peace, the relative peace that's possible on this earth, which is the peace of like I feel like I'm really trying to do my best at each moment. And so that gives me peace of mind. I know the evolution is a very, very slow process. So it's okay. There's time for everything. This is never an excuse to justify my mistakes or to avoid doing the work. On the contrary, I use that to engage each and every day more and more into life and into my own process. So, kind of long story, just to say that um, the nature of our thoughts really affects the vibratory level of our spiritual body. So, if you want to go to a higher place in the spiritual plane, you need to be properly dressed. So another analogy, very easy to think, if you're going to, I see you all wearing long sleeves, I'm in shorts and flip-flop in Miami. So if you're going to a warm place, you dress light. If you go into Ohio, you have to put some layers, especially when you live on the street. The spiritual plane is also like this, and I like to think that the spiritual plane is like Miami because it has to be a very sunny place where you are dressing light. So we cannot be carrying so many layers of attachment. We have to be undress. We have to leave all these layers and experience lightness. So if we are dressing heavily, we can ascend. We need to be dressed lightly and with light in order to be able to ascend. So our thoughts and our will, they are working on our garment, our spiritual garment, and the vibratory level of our thinking and the vibratory level of our being is ultimately what's going to determine where we are going to be. Not only that, but sometimes we all have in ourselves some um, let's say knots or uh, tumors or illnesses already established in our vibratory being that are not yet manifested in our physical body. And by committing to a this mental hygiene and prayer and meditation and seeking to elevate our thoughts, a lot of times the disease that we bring in ourselves will never manifest because that vibratory tone, that vibratory condition is little by little dissipated by a new state of things. So we have the power to actually undo some of the knots and the diseases that we bring in our spiritual body by uh, this work, this mind work, um, that we put forth, and that can again disintegrate. Sometimes, no matter what we do, we will not achieve this level of healing, because there are other forces and other needs, spiritual needs, that require for us to undergo certain diseases of the body that will ultimately provide spiritual healing, which is always the goal. When we talk about healing, true healing, we're talking about the healing of the spirit, which is the source of all illnesses. Finally, when we think about will, it's also something that is powerful during our awakened state or during our sleep. So when we set this intent very strongly, it's not going to operate only when we are awakened, but also during our sleep hours. So the spirit, whatever it is, continues to work towards and guided by that intent and by that will. I always like to share that I have a very difficult time praying at night because by the time I get to bed, I don't fall asleep. I discarnate literally every single night. I lie down, and in within the first minute I'm already gone. In fact, if I stop talking here and I close my eyes, I leave my body almost immediately. um, so my spirit seems to be always ready to leave, which is actually in line with what Kardec says, that the spirit does not like to be in the physical body. The spirit seeks any opportunity to leave the body, and I really experienced that. So for a long time, I felt very guilty because, I grew up in spiritism, and from the moment I was in my mom's belly, I already heard that you have to pray at night. And I'm like, how is this? I cannot pray at night. And then I came to the conclusion that that was okay, because my intent is set very strongly. And I feel that I live my days really with a very strong commitment to everything that I believe. And therefore, we also learn in Spiritism that prayer is not just the moment that you stop and say, I'm going to do a prayer, but we should seek to make every single moment of our lives a prayer, in the sense that in every moment you are seeking to be connected with the higher forces and let them guide you. So make no mistake, I do not stay connected to the higher forces at every single moment of my life. But in general, I came to peace with myself that um, I feel that overall, this is my intent. And so I don't have any doubt that once I'm out of my body, my spirit remains in its commitment to work, to study, to grow, and to do the things that it needs to be done. So Denis will say that we can accomplish everything in the psychic domain. No force remains sterile when exercised with constancy in view of achieving an established goal. So I love this sentence. We can accomplish everything in the psychic domain. So anything and everything that we put our minds into is possible. We, especially in this side of the planet, we are very weak in terms of learning to use the resources of our mind, of our thoughts. Even a prayer, sometimes a prayer, if the prayer, God forbid, goes more than 15 seconds, we are lost. We are already thinking about what we have to do after the prayer, what's coming on that afternoon, and it shows how difficult it is for us to keep our thoughts And in these days where thinking has become extremely shallow and extremely fast, we have learned the ability to do deep thinking, to take time to actually reflect, which is something that Denis addressed also in the 1800s. He talked about people not taking the time to meditate. And he suggests in the 1800s that we should read less books and read slower, read with enough time to stop and to think, how does this concept apply to me? Instead of saying, oh, I read 100 books, it's better to read 10 books where you actually took the time to think about what you were reading and to reflect on how those um, uh, how the content applies to yourself. And I always say, when studying the gospel, for example, if you guys have a gospel group, you read the gospel and then you talk about what's written over there, and you're talking about how the world needs that, and your neighbor, and your husband, and your mother. But you don't realize that those words, all of them, without exception, were written for you. It's you. So when you read the gospel and you read about selfishness and you read about self-interest and you read about everything, you should be asking, the Spirit wrote this for me. How so? That's how we should be studying the gospel. Every single line that we read, we need to stop and think, what does this mean to me? Right? So, Denis also talks about two sustaining forces that are important to keep together with thought and will, which are trust and optimism. Those are sources of preservation that need to be cultivated. So they raise our resistance. When you think about, for example, we have in our bodies many infinitely small elements that can become destructive at any given time. But we take vaccines and we do things that don't eliminate those elements, but raise our resistance, and so we become stronger to face them. So when we think about trust in God, and optimism and hope, which Spiritism gives us, because it helps us to see life from a much higher perspective, then we nurture those forces within us. They will not move the problems out of our lives because they are there for our betterment, but they will give us resources and resilience to be able to face those challenges with the strength and with the perseverance that's necessary for overcoming any type of obstacle. All right, so we have 5 minutes, and because I'm very disciplined person, and so I'm going to finish right on time. And let's then conclude by, I started by talking about these treasures that lie within us, about the God that lies within us, and how we can, now that we talk a lot about thought and will and these forces and how they operate in us, how we can use them to actually connect and tap into these amazing resources that lies in the depths of our soul. So Denis will say that it is necessary to direct our thought inwards, to open and read the book hidden within us, the book of the transformation of the being. This book that we have within us tells us who we are and who we will be, and teaches us the greatest of the mysteries, the creation of the self through constant effort and the sovereign action of thought, which causes the work to germinate according to the aptitudes and talents of the being. Our journey up to this point speaks of the great miracle of life and fills us with hope in what we are to become. So I have to read because this is so beautiful. And so Denis is telling us about the necessity to then take this powerful instrument that we have, our thoughts and our wills, and direct it inwards. Inside us, there is a book, a hidden book, which is the book of our journey up to the moment of today. So in this book, there is our past, and the is the book of our transformation. It's so beautiful because it talks about our evolution to this moment. Where you are today is a freaking miracle. You have used your thoughts, you have used your will to bring yourself from being a intelligent principle to being the human that you are. This in itself is an amazing feat, and sometimes we lose track of that. So allow yourself to feel and to be amazed by the journey that you have undergone up to this moment, and understand that the power and the forces that brought you here are the power and the forces that will continue to propel you forward into your absolutely most divine and beautiful version. Today, you are already your best version, and that's going to continue to unfold. And the more that we put our thoughts and our will at the work of our immortal being, the greater and the faster is going to be this process. So we can sit on a boat and let the flow of the river take us, which will take us where we need to go, or we can take and the boat and actually row. And when we are rowing, we can then decide the direction. We can impose a certain pace to our evolution. So we are now actively participating in the process through our efforts and to the use of our thoughts. And here we'll continue to say that it's necessary, in order to do that, to associate ourselves with the living cause of all things, which is the God that lies within us. So I'm going to go back now to the very beginning statement of what I did today. The force of the weed that makes that weed comes through three layers that I put on my ground so it does not pop, but it pops. It's the force of God, it's the force of life. And again, this force is within you. A lot of times when we think of God, we think of this force outside. I have to pray to God. We need to understand that to pray to God is to pray to something that is a force, is an entity that lies in each one of your cells. You have that God within you. So we need to use our thoughts and our mind to connect with our own force, with our own potential, and then use our thoughts and our wills to listen to God. It's important to talk, it's important to go in, to dive, and to meet this God that lives within us. And it's also important to listen. And how do we listen to God? We use our mind and our thoughts to pay attention to the voices. Once you silence, you will listen. You will learn to listen to thoughts that emerge from you from time to time in moments that you are not expecting. Is the watch and pray that Jesus said, meaning you pray and then you watch what comes, you watch the response, you watch the thoughts, you watch the intuition. We are so busy doing that you have little time to be, you have little time to be with yourself. And if we pay attention to our thoughts, you will see that a lot of times an idea will come to you, a feeling. Feelings are God's codes. God speaks to us to our feelings, to our emotions. So a lot of times it is an emotion, an idea that will surface. But if you were so busy, if you were, for example, 24 by 7 connected to social media, you're not leaving any room, any space. We talk about wanting to connect with the higher forces, but you have to actually open a window of opportunity for this connection to take place. Nowadays, our minds are completely taken by social media interaction. All our free time is on the phone, scrolling on Instagram, on TikTok, on this and on that. So the spirits are there sitting and basically waiting. When is this creature is going to give me a little possibility to speak to him or to her? And they wait patiently for us to do a prayer or to uh, sit in front of a beautiful park and take a few breaths or open a book and read and then stop a little bit so that we can see what thoughts come up. But the potential is there. And I will then end here with another sentence from Denis. He tells us that the power of will reminds us is really unlimited. So I hope that this can be an inspiration for each one of us to live here today, um, feeling confident about our potentials, whatever is the struggle that you are undergoing today, whatever is your pain, whatever is your challenge, know that the resources lie within you because, as Jesus says, you are God's and can do everything that I have done and much more. And this is it, my friends.
That's great.
Thank you.
Now we'll have time to questions. Yeah.
I have one question. Which book is the Leon Denis that you mentioned?
I'm having a very difficult time hearing.
Oh, sorry, yeah. You gotta wait, stand up and talk to.
Can you repeat for her? What is the book that Leon Denis wrote that she mentioned on the
The book, the book.
Yeah.
Is everybody there Brazilian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The book is O Problema do Ser, do Destino e da Dor, which I need to see. I actually have it here in English, but I have to see how was it translated. Three chapters. A chapter that talks about thought, a chapter that talks about the transformative power of thought on character, and a chapter that talks about willpower. So three chapters in this book that are, if you enjoy this content, I really, really recommend reading. It's not a difficult reading, and it's extremely, extremely inspiring.
Can you repeat the name again?
I
got
it.
I got it.
I got it.
I got it.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning. I'm Angelica. I'm here in Virginia. Susan, I just want to say that your talk was so inspiring. Thank you very much. It gave us, at least to me, I think it was so empowering,
Mm-hmm.
what you brought. Made us realize that we have so much power on us and that we don't use it.
Mm-hmm.
So we thank you very much for that alert that you brought today, that with the responsibility also came a lot of comfort. So just thank you. Thank you very
You're
much.
very welcome. Thank you for sharing. Mm-hmm.
I have a question, Suzana. I don't know if you can hear me okay. Or I can go closer. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Is
You
it possible
mentioned-
to turn on the lights?
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry. Oh,
Oh, nice.
So let me speak here a little closer.
Yes.
You mentioned about guilt, right? So I think we study so much, and when we enter the spiritism, it feels like, the more we learn, like the more we feel like we should, all situations that we don't do right, like we feel like, oh, I know this, I should have done this right. So I feel like that it's even harder not to feel guilty because now we
Mhm,
know more.
mhm.
What's your advice on like not being on that state of mind, the spiral thoughts that just bring us like again and again? I know that you mentioned a little bit, but I'm looking for a little
Sure,
more advice on that.
sure. I did a fraternal counseling with a man who just joined the Spiritus not too long ago. He's not very he doesn't even know if he believes in spirits or not yet, so he's very much in the beginning. But he lost his son on an overdose, so that kind of brought him to the spiritual center, and he is under the idea that he's much of his suffering has to do with the fact that um, he has not received any messages to tell how his son is doing. And he told me something that really struck me and impacted me, because he said, uh, uh, "I know I have learned in spiritism that I'm not good, and that we are bad, and that maybe I don't deserve to receive this message." And I thought that to be one of the most painful things that I heard. And I think that we have to be very careful, because I think that if we don't speak about those things properly, that's what people end up feeling. So instead of helping people to feel better about themselves, we are actually feeding this uh, pandemic low self-esteem that we see in our humanity, where, so here's how and this is how my mind works. I work with analogies, and I think that's a very powerful way to educate people, because you can always remember those little comparisons. When you were on second grade, 8 years old, or let's say six, seven, and you were learning to write, and your handwriting is not pretty. Um, and it will be pretty one day when you are in high school, or, but that is the best handwriting that you can do at that moment. And as a 8 years old, you shouldn't feel bad because your handwriting isn't pretty. That is what is expected from you at that moment. That is your best handwriting, and it's appropriate to your stage of evolution. We are doing our best, and what we are doing is a handwriting that's not so pretty yet, but it is what we can do, and there's nothing wrong with that. If God wanted us to be perfect from the beginning, God would have made us perfect from the beginning. We are perfect in the sense that we are divine, but our humanity is divine. Our limitations is divine. Everything that we are and the way we live and the things that we do, including our mistakes, is divine. Everything is within God's plan. God wanted it to be this way. God wanted us to build ourselves to trials and errors. So our humanity cannot be sinful. If we want to use a more Catholic image, our humanity, our mistakes, our evolution is divine in itself. So we need to shy away from this idea of badness, because this is what we have inherited from our Catholic past lives, with all the respect and not wanting to diminish anyone. But we bring this very cultural idea of good and bad. And that's why when I was speaking to you all, I try not to use that. And I said, what is adding and what is withdrawing? So, because in reality, our mistakes are necessary for our learning. It is divine. The divine educational system works this way for spirits in our condition everything is good. There is no bad thing, because when you get something right, you have that immediate reward feeling that tells you this has added to my life, to the flow of my life, to the abundance of my life. But when you do something wrong, which we do a lot, you have that immediate feeling of scarcity. It took away your peace, took away your harmony, right? So it's necessary that that becomes a very valuable moment, because it gives you a reference. Okay, I need to do something different. This didn't go. This is not the best for me. Let me try something else. I am in a conflict with someone. I can choose to be right, or I can choose to be peaceful. I can choose to win over the argument, or I can choose to not lose my friend. Those are choices that we make on each and every moment, and we need them. We need the mistakes. The mistakes are powerful teaching tools. So if we can learn to look at life from this perspective, we will fall many times, and we will understand that we are in second grade and that we are learning, and we also understand that this is divine. So what God wants from us is awareness and willingness to learn. We don't need to feel that we are worth less, that we don't need to devalue ourselves because of our mistakes. What we need to do is to proactive seek to ask ourselves not why this happened, but what for? What for is this in my life? What is that I need to learn? How can I change this state of things? And so I think it's the perspective, is how we need to retrain our minds and the way that we think about life, so that we because a lot of times also this state of guilt and feeling bad about ourselves is a protection to remain infantile. In the sense, like, when you victimize ourselves, when you, oh, I'm guilty, oh, I'm bad, oh, I can't do this, oh, look how horrible I am, then now you don't take the next step, which is say, a mature spirit, maturity uh, gives you the ability to say, yes, I mess up, but so what's next, right? What is my responsibility? Now you take responsibility and you move forward. Whereas immaturity, we get stuck in victimization, and it serves us to not feel so good and to be stuck in that place, because now you don't have to do anything other than keep crying and waiting for someone to come and save you or to comfort you, when you need to comfort yourself. You need to say, hey, let's keep going. Okay, it calls for humility as well, right? So what makes it very difficult is that, and also religions and spiritism know differently, um, um, makes it difficult for us, is this idea that we have to be perfect. Perfection is something that's going to come when we come to the pure worlds. When we learn in the gospel that the worlds of trial and trial and expiation, regeneration, there's still um, good and evil present. The next realm, there's still evil present, although goodness is prevalent, but evil is still present. So think about this. We're going to be handling and dealing with passions and feelings that are not the best for a long time. So we need to be humble to say this. We just coming out of primitive world. So this is just our nature. A lot of times we do instinctively. We're still very instinctive beings. We don't act, we react. We are constantly reacting to people instead of having that moment of human reasoning where you think, this person is attacking me. She probably is not well. I'm having reactions. So she's probably touching my own wounds, and that's why I have such strong feelings. So as I know all of this, I'm not going to react, I'm going to act. I'm going to choose consciously how I'm going to respond to this person. I ask you, how many times do you do that? Very little, because we're still instinctive, we're still reacting to people. So in face of this, how can we want to be like perfect? So if you wake up and say your intent is to be perfect, I'm sorry, you set yourself for failure and suffering. Your intent is to be your best version today. This is what you should be. You know? So as you see, and I hope this helps, we need to start thinking about evolution and good and bad a little bit differently.
Okay, Suzana, thank you so much for your time. I know that Angelica already said, but it's never enough. Thank you for being here with us in this morning on Sunday, talking about the gospel, talking about the things that we need to put in balance for life, spiritual things in balance with the material things that we do today. Thank you for everything. I just want to say and invite everyone. I see a lot of new people here, the ones that come always, but the old ones also. We do have the studies that we invite everyone. Wednesday at 7:30, we're studying On the Way of the Light. It's a book, a very interesting book, that it treats basically about evolution. And on Thursday also, we have a study 7:30 also about the Book of the Books. It's a very interesting study also. If you want to explore a little bit more, something that all of us are, that we are all, we just need to find out what is the life of your religion and take advantage of this blessing. We are here every Sunday, 10:30. Sometimes it's the gospel, sometimes we have some classes that we study the basics of the spirituals. And sometimes it's a speech lecture. Right. And after 10:30 to 11:30, then we have the classes. I think these are all the rest of it. Maybe something? No? And to finish, I will invite Suzana if you can do the final prayer for us.
Sure. All right, so let's all take a moment to elevate our thoughts and our feelings to God, our Father, thanking God for this moment, for the opportunity that we had to be here today together, connected in person and online. We thank God for this resource and the fact that we made it, despite so many other things that we could be doing, the ability to take this time to connect to what is essential and to remember who we are and our divine filiation and possibilities. May God help us to stay connected with this thought and to find God within ourselves as many times as needed and possible as we go on with our lives, recognizing our power and our ability to change our realities always for better. We pray for this group, for all the people connected to the group, as well as we pray for this planet. May this prayer be helpful to anyone who is in pain, who is suffering, who is most of all in need of clarity and hope. Once more, thank you for this opportunity, and so be it. All right, everybody. Thanks so much, you guys. Hope to be back and have a wonderful Sunday. Bye.